Welcome to Read Amigas Book Club, where we empower women to accomplish self-care through the knowledge of reading. Here you will find a community with the vision to inspire women worldwide. Hi, amigas!
How's everyone doing?
Good. How are you guys?
I'm so good. I'm glad that it's warming up here.
Yes, I love the weather right now. I think it's been easier, like deciding what to wear.
Yes, able to go out and most people being vaccinated and everything opening up here in California. Awesome.
Yes.
I love the summer.
Me too.
Better than the winter.
Definitely.
I mean, it's true what they say, like getting a little bit of sun really like just gets you in a happier mood, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Not everybody though. Some people like the cold weather.
I mean, they like the cold weather, but mood-wise, emotionally-wise, cold weather actually gives you...
Yeah, they say like going out
issues.
and getting some sun gets you a little more happier, endorphins and all.
All right. So exciting. Loving the book. Are you guys loving the book?
Yeah, so this is our first podcast, right? For Professional Troublemaker by Luvvie. How can
Luvvie.
I think
Luvvie?
she does talk about in
Her
the
name.
book how people butcher her name.
Yes.
I feel for her.
And so I'm not even going to...
But I do love that she
Does the pronunciation, right?
she does a pronunciation. She breaks everything down, how to understand, where she's from Nigeria. And it was even harder than Luvvie. It used to be, I won't even try to say it. But then she changed it, like in elementary, to Lovette. And now in college, it changed to Luvvie.
Yeah.
And when I was reading it, like the pronunciation, it's almost like reading it in Spanish. Ajayi, or something like that. It's so...
Yeah.
I was like, okay, not that bad. But yeah, it's been amazing, you guys. What do you guys think?
We love it. I mean, for me, and I was talking to my mom about it, and realistically, everything she describes about being a child and how she was so outspoken and always getting in trouble, like that was so me. That's always been me. So it really resonates with who I am. I really feel like I'm gonna one day be her grandma, if not already,
But already. Yeah.
Already.
I can
You're,
validate
right?
that.
You
On
can
the
validate,
way.
yeah. You
On
already
the way.
know. So we're going to be discussing pages 1 through 140. The way we broke up this book, it seems like there's extra pages. So we're going to try to do some justice to everything we've been reading because she is amazing and we love the book so far.
Yeah, and I didn't know, but she had a book that came out before this.
Yes.
Which a lot of people also talk really good about.
Yeah, I've been meaning to check it out to see how the reviews were for that book.
So in the beginning, it focuses a lot on her, where she grew up, and mainly, I mean, just like Jess said, it's all about her grandma. Her grandma inspired her to be who she is and how to think, and just, I mean, that's like her goddess, her role model. She was the professional troublemaker that started everything.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's amazing when we think about how we inspire or the role we play in, children in our lives, our nieces, our nephews. I know that my niece is very always outspoken and very sassy. And her mom just always says, okay, there's mini Jessica, and for me, whenever she's with me, my belief is let her live her best life. I always let her do her thing, and she's really good about listening to my rules and things like that because I let her express herself so much.
Right. And that's what I was going to say right now. Like, it's almost like you don't want to, I mean, I know right now she doesn't get it, but as she gets older, I don't think she would want to know and hear that I was just like my tia Jessica. It's like, no, I want to be myself. Like, why can't this be me? So, I mean, like you say, just let her be herself. I mean, she's becoming herself. So being all that is going to be her, and it's not labeled as tia Jessica. It's like, you're your own.
Yeah. I just think there isn't, and even as we're reading, there isn't enough outspoken women around children sometimes.
Right.
And we'll get into that a little because something did stand out to me of the cultural differences of our culture, the Latino culture compared to her culture. And I'll bring it up later on when we get into it. But yeah, the beginning is like an ode to her grandma.
Yeah.
And
I really like the life mission statement. Did you guys do that?
so
Yes, so that's kind of what I caught onto the first chapter, the culture and the oriki. Does that bring you guys back to Diosa?
Yeah.
I did.
Right? That's the main thing that I got from the first chapter, that everybody needs an oriki, which is kind of like your own mantra that's aligned to your core values.
Yeah.
And that's the assignment that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked how, like, I didn't get where it was going. Like, I was just like, okay, I'm writing my stuff down, kind of like journaling and stuff. But once I turned the page and I saw her example of hers, I was like, oh my God, that is awesome. The way she put it all together. Like, it's almost like it even fits for it to be read at your funeral.
Oh, 100%.
I was like, oh my God, I love it. It's so funny because I read it at work in the parking lot, how I usually do. And I like finished there and I went inside and I was just like still amazed by it. And one of my coworkers that I talked to really good, he was just hanging out right there having his coffee. And I was like, are you busy? And he's like, no. And I was like, okay, read this. Like, how cool is this? You got to just read it. I think you should try it out just to read it and do your own and put it together the way she did, because it is so badass. Like, I like how she put it all together and tied it together. And it just reads a whole story of the way she thinks, of the way,
the way she sees herself.
Exactly.
I think that
not losing yourself.
I did a self-empowerment program and we had to do one for ourselves. And so on my to-do list, when I do my to-do list every day, I write mine every day just so that it and it's funny because we've talked about, when we did Dare to Lead and we explored our values and things like that. Brought me back right? to that. So, in mine, my values are on there, right? And it was so crazy because the way that activity works is what you see in yourself and what others see in you. And my values still ended up in there, which was really cool because that is how I see myself and that's how others see me. And she goes back to the values again, how Brene Brown did. And, I had to think about it. And I love how one of her values was
shea butter.
Shea butter.
Yeah, I love that one.
She talks about her skin a lot.
That is so funny.
It's important to her.
It was funny, but I was like, no, own that shit. Like, shea butter is important to her, and you should be. Where she put, get some shea butter in your life and watch your life change.
And it's funny because I remember my grandma. She was an esthetician, right? She had her own beauty salon. So anytime I'd be leaving the house, she'd be like, "Te ves bien, pero no te vas a poner vile?" Like, her big thing was like, are you wearing lipstick? Like, are you really gonna go out without lipstick?
Oh wow.
And I'm like, oh God, that was like her shea butter. My grandma was like, always
put something on those lips.
Are you gonna do something about it? Like, your lips look very pale. What's wrong with you?
I have a thing with lotion. Like, anytime the kids already know you're wearing shorts, you're wearing a dress, did you put on lotion? It's like, you do not go anywhere with those ashy knees.
I have an obsession with lotion too.
Me too. I have it everywhere. I have it in my purse, on my desk. Lotion's life.
But it was cool because it reminded me, so mine, when we did Brene Brown, it was honesty and compassion. And hers is, one of them is authenticity. And it's something that I value so much. And I was having this conversation with my family, how in my household, if it's the truth, it will be said. Right. My family, you can tell the smallest lie. Like, she talks about lies. You can talk about the smallest lie, like, oh, it's going to be cold today. And if it's hot, my family will be like, she lied. It was hot. You remember that one time when she lied? Like, and sometimes there's varying degrees in all of us, but I'm very honest. And people are like, did she really just say that? Like, did that really just come out of her mouth? And I have a way of saying things where I don't offend people as bad, but my family will offend people.
Yeah.
And I was raised on, well, it's the truth, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Which leads us to chapter 2. Be too much.
And this brought me back to Diosa, remember, guys?
Yeah.
In Diosa, my challenge was that I always see myself as being too much. And ending Diosa, I was like, no, I love that I'm too much. You know, it's
Yeah,
my
that is me.
superpower. Yeah.
And for those of you that are just joining in, this is your first podcast with us. We're going to refer to I Am Diosa because it was the previous book that we read.
Yeah, it's by
I
Christine
think
Gutierrez.
I think we're gonna refer always to a lot of books.
Yeah.
And we
So-
have a lot of this stuff on our previous books, on our highlights. So if you guys want to just kind of breeze through it.
So chapter 3, Dream Audaciously. I feel like this one was probably the best chapter that I read because I feel like yo me paso soñando, o sea, yo quiero ser grande. But I feel like it talks about, you know, how we're programmed to expect less from the world because of how we grew up in our households, you know. She talks about like the white folks, you know, asking to buy the mountains, right? Alguien comprar una montaña, did we grow up thinking about that? Like, let's buy a mountain, guys.
Yeah, no.
So, and I feel like we don't dream big because we're also scared to not accomplish it. Like we
Failing.
but we automatically have that thought.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like, why not just dream and not think about failing? So,
Or because we also didn't see it growing up. You know?
Yeah, I think for me, I grew up, you know, with a single mom and poverty, like one room for all of us. So dreaming big for me was like, I have a house in my own room, like, you know, being able to pay my bills and getting home at 5 o'clock or having weekends off. Like my parents never would have had a weekend off, right? Because they work jobs where that wasn't an option.
Yeah.
So I think the way we dream big sometimes, it depends on where we're starting from, right?
Right.
And yeah, like I agree with her. She talks about, and I love her realness when it comes to calling out white privilege, right? Like, why do white men get to dream as high as they do, and none of us get to that?
Kind of mentality.
Yeah, and she calls it's like, let me look for the word that she used. She said, dreaming big is in itself a privilege. Like if you and we sit down and we talk about the dreams we want to accomplish, like other people will sense like these people feel like they're privileged. And I'm like, that is such a good description because we didn't grow up dreaming like this, like having that big vision. So you're right. We grew up in our household thinking, I just want to have days off. I just want to have a good job. Vacations. Like those were our dreams.
Yeah,
back
like
in our
my tia
childhood.
still doesn't, like she's so amazed by PTO. Like you're gonna get paid on your day off, but you didn't go to work. Why are they paying?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's a dream come true for her to land a job like
our
that.
dreams are more than what our parents had, but what we need to change and what we're changing is even more than that. Like
She says that dreaming is a form of courage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
It's so true. So this one was a really good one.
And also, you know, we talk about like, and we've talked about it in a couple books where it's like changing generational beliefs, right? I just had a talk the other day about being a boss and having a disability and how, and, you know, obviously to top it off, Latina and, you know, single mom and all these things that kind of push against you. And so when you want to take certain risks and you're like, well, all the people doing it don't look like me. And it's like, well, she talks about it on page 55, how because there isn't a map for people like us, we have to create it.
Make that blueprint yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man, that is so true.
Let's dream boldly and unapologetically. And then we get into chapter 4. Own your dopeness. I think I'm really good at this, guys.
Yeah. We fear being perceived as arrogant. I remember just before, I mean, even now, we always tell her, you're so conceited. Stop it. Like, ya no le digan cosas porque se le va a subir más a la cabeza.
Oh my God, yes. I hate when people say, so all the time people will say, oh, she's pretty. Oh, she's amazing. And, you know, she talks about her grandma, how when they would tell her that, she would never say, oh, stop. Oh, not really. And for me, I'm just like, yeah, I am. I'm so amazing, you know.
Yeah,
and
thank
people
you.
and people are bothered by that sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's never stopped me because I feel like I'm not responsible for how you feel.
How they see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true. There's actually on page 63, It says, do not let people make you feel bad for being successful and for being you and for being amazing and for being accomplished.
Yes.
And I think there's like a quote or a meme that says, you know, if the people you hang out with don't clap for your success, you need to get new people to hang out with. It's like if you're not bragging your goals or your accomplishments, you're just talking about who you are and what you've done. And people sometimes don't like that.
Yeah, there's another one I thought you were gonna say right now, like how it was sounding something where like don't lower your standards like to those people. It's because they're not at your level, so just you keep going and other people will meet you there.
The one that I liked was on page 64, where she talks about how it's not about others liking you. And the main thing that I got was it's really about being liked by you first. Like if I like myself, and this is why I am the way I am, it's because if I like myself, that's all that matters to me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, the right people are going to tag along and be alongside with you.
And the crazy thing is, you know, I always read about like, oh, haters this, haters that, blah, blah, blah. I can really say I've in my lifetime, maybe I've had one hater.
But it's true.
And you know what? And it's also because like la importancia que le das, like, are you also paying attention to all the haters out there? It's like, no, like I could care less.
For me, and
so
it's crazy.
there could be more, but
There
we
could
know
be.
of, I don't know.
But I've always said that, like, I like myself so much. I have this belief system that everyone likes.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And it gives you this confidence. And yeah, like it says on page 6, honestly, I highlighted like the whole page of 64. I'm like, this is all good. But it says, never underestimate the effect of confidence. If you believe you're the dopest thing walking, you might convince people of the same.
I think
just because you're so headstrong about it as fact. It is so true. The more you love yourself, you're confident and you attract those people. And like Jessica said, like you believe that people love you for who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she talks a little bit about being, you know, how being humble is overrated. And I think that's how I live my life. And it's really interesting how, and you guys know this, right? People do gravitate towards me. I do have a very big group of people that I love and that love me. And, you know, again, going back to
and it's very different groups.
Yeah, I attract multiple types of people. And it's because confidence, although we're scared of it actually doesn't bother other people sometimes, you know. At least for me, it's always been the case that my confidence it hasn't hindered my ability to form those friendships.
Right.
That's true.
All
so
right.
for anybody, don't make yourself smaller or apologize for it. Be big.
Always.
I like that, to focus on the kids right now as they are, you know, continue that and push them on that, not to.
Well, honestly, okay, so we just went on vacation, right? And JV, Nadie's daughter, I go, Nadie, you know you're raising Jessica, right? Like,
She's the same.
that child, like and Nadie says it. She's like, I just don't ever want to make her feel insecure. I don't want to like shut her down. And I'm like, she's me.
She really is. It was like having a little, like, not a 5-year-old, but it maybe like she really was acting like a teenager, but an okay teenager. Like,
Yeah.
And I feel like because my little one's always surrounded by obviously wonderful women, like you guys. She acts like a little older than her age, but she's so good.
But she's very confident in herself, and I think we're so quick to tell children, like, stop it, behave, don't do that, don't do this. And I've told you guys, let them run, let them jump. I don't care. Like we'll be in restaurants and stores, and I'm like, can you guys stop stopping them?
Yeah,
like, please. And you're both like,
I know. I'm like, she's never watching my child, and my little one's like, can you have the Jessica babysit me? She's a favorite. But we're just, what I'm trying to do is just break generational curses and just be better.
Yeah, because I think our culture is very much about aplácate, stop, behave.
You have to be like very, stern and no puedes hacer nada en frente del público.
Yes.
So chapter 5, trust where you are. What? Trust where you are. Yeah. I was like, what am I reading?
We fear success. Yes, we do. So it talks about imposter syndrome.
Oh,
That's a
everybody
good
goes
one.
through this.
Yes.
I think everybody does.
Well,
Whether we deserve whatever the opportunities are, that leads us to talking to ourselves out of winning before we even get to it into the race. That's so true. Because, she gives her example of the TED Talk,
Mm-hmm.
which I haven't listened to her TED Talk.
Oh,
Have
I
you
went
guys?
and
So
listen
for
to it.
anybody that doesn't know what imposter syndrome is, what is it?
So imposter syndrome is where you start feeling as if you aren't educated enough, you're not enough, you don't know enough, and people are sooner or later going to figure out that you're a fake. So basically it's like having this fear, right? And what she talks about, even when she talks about the TED Talk, is that although people might look at her and think she's not fearful of the decision she's making or of being up on that stage, she says she is fearful, right? So it's okay to have fear that we're going to mess up. She talks about how fear is actually a good driver, right? Because it keeps you going and it keeps you perfecting your craft. And she talks about how that's why professional speakers become so good. It's because they are fearful, right? But what she talks about is it doesn't mean that you're not the shit. Like, you're still the shit. Like, you got this. It's just having a little fear doesn't mean you're going to stop yourself from doing it.
Right.
We do it afraid, And I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's hilarious because I was thinking about this and I get this from a lot of people is that I take really big risks, right? And the other day I was telling one of my friends, like, recently I just quit my 9 to 5 to focus on my private practice and being a therapist independently.
Congrats, Jess.
Yay. And she's like, I mean, I think you're scared. I'm like, girl, I'm terrified. What do you mean? But it's not about that,
Yeah.
And so she says, it wasn't that I wasn't fearful. It's that I did it anyways. And when we are honoring out our gifts, we have to stand in them. So we have to just stand with that fear,
Push through it.
Yes. So make sure you guys check out her TED Talk.
It's really good. I love it. And if you check out the TED Talk, it basically tells you what this whole book is about.
Oh, wow. It
Yeah.
breaks it down.
Yeah.
So chapter 6, speak the truth. We fear the power of honesty.
Oh, yes. Truth hurts.
So I think in our culture, I don't know if you guys have ever heard the phrase, la verdad no peca, pero sí incomoda.
Yes.
So I was raised with that, which is the truth isn't a sin, but it does make people uncomfortable. And that's the mantra in my home. So that's what I was raised with. So you always say the truth. And so a lot of times we come off as assholes. And she talks about that too, how there's different types of truth tellers. Like sometimes you're just being an asshole.
Yeah, right. Like, okay, come on. Like, give me a break. You're hurting my feelings.
And I love our friend group because she talks about how if you have the right friends, you have to be honest, and we're very honest with each other. And I think that's actually one of the reasons we started this book club, right? Because we started realizing that there were women out there that didn't have this, that didn't have other women in their life that they could grow with and that they could share things with. And we give each other very honest feedback.
Yeah, even when we know somebody's not going to like it, like, it's needed. You need to hear from somebody else's perspective sometimes because you won't see it yourself, right?
Yeah, we got to give each other that tough love sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the book club pushed us into, reading the book, and sometimes nobody would really say anything on one thing, and somebody would bring it up like, "Hey, this is all you," and it's like, wait a minute, what? I didn't even see it that way, and you go back and read it, and it's like, wow, I guess it is me. I didn't even notice it, but your friends, point it out because they know you the most, they know you the best, and all your different ways of, that you are with them.
Yeah, and she talks about something very simple like a fucked up hairstyle. Right? So she says your instincts is to instantly say, yes, of course I love it. But right then you don't want to hurt your friend's feelings or rock the friendship boat. I understand. But then your friend takes a selfie and she realizes you lied.
Oh, we've had a lot of those. Like, I didn't like it.
And I like how she does like breakdowns on different type of people, right? For different scenarios, like in a workspace, and how she talks about how being a black woman, like oftentimes you're going to come off as being aggressive.
Well, that's the part that I wanted to talk about and do a comparison with our culture, right? I think that our culture a lot of times is actually taught to be quiet.
Oh, yeah.
to actually minimize yourself, to go unnoticed. And I think it has to do a lot with like the immigrant in us, right? Where it's like
our parents, their
You
childhood.
shouldn't speak, you know.
Aguántate type of thing, I feel like.
Calladito se ve más bonito.
Yeah, and in, you know, Black culture, the women have been these amazing leaders in making change and fighting for their rights, and she's so true how she says that they come off as an angry Black woman,
Right.
when in reality they're just trying to save everyone else's asses, right? And in our culture, especially Latina women, like our moms are, you know, it's funny because my mom, she's a single woman and things like that, but she taught me to keep my mouth shut sometimes because, you know, in our culture it's like, well, she's a single mom, what happened, she obviously failed, and da-da-da, you know, and there's a lot of stigma behind it. And she did let me be very outspoken in the home, right? But outside of the home, she was like, you better be careful about what you say and who you say it to.
It's so funny that like it's our culture, but then it's also as women, you know, like
Yeah, our added.
like shit. We have more to it.
But she says how the truth tellers are the leaders, right? And how without being a truth teller, like who's gonna start that? Who's gonna make?
Right.
Who's gonna be the first move? And who's gonna, you know, take that leadership to make a change for everyone else?
Yeah. And for those that won't speak up, be the voice for them.
And then we get to failing, right? One of our biggest fears, chapter 7, fail loudly. And I when I read this, I was like thinking to myself, because I just had this conversation with one of my friends who was saying how school, she just wasn't sure if it was her thing and she didn't want to fail. I have a master's from USC, one of the best schools in the US, right? I almost flunked out of junior college. I was on probation my first semester at Cal State Fullerton. I failed like 3 classes my first semester. I got into USC like because of my personal statement. I got in on probation. Like, I'm like, girl, I have failed so many times. Like,
Yeah.
but I think what I was thinking is that a lot of times we only see the outcome, right? Like when people see me, they're like, oh, she was a single mom who finished school, who got through everything. She's, you know, so independent financially. No one takes care of her. Like she started her own business, da da da. But it's like, I started my own business because I wanted to be a boss and I couldn't get hired anywhere as a boss. So am I a failure?
Yeah, they just see the big picture, but you're like, oh no, there was a lot of bumps on the road and failures. Like that got you where you're at.
And she talks about the whole drama she had on Twitter where she expressed herself and she got the backlash out of it, and that kind of just lit a fire up her butt, and she's like, you know what, I'm just gonna do me, read a damn book and say what I gotta say.
Yeah, she says how failure can actually set you up for success.
Yeah.
Right? Like she said that if she wouldn't have gone through that whole Twitter situation where she said something negative and everyone jumped on her back, then she wouldn't have realized how many people were actually following her and how important her voice was, which is true.
She said it, she effed up, so it's like, which reminded me of Rachel Hollis.
Oh,
she's still not back on social media.
Rachel
We're
Hollis,
praying for
she was
her.
our first book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's got a
She's
special
going
spot.
through
And
a
the
lot.
thing is, it's funny because she talks about when she finally ends that chapter, she talks about how, you know what, I should have apologized. And I just kept trying to defend myself. And the reason why we continuously try to defend ourselves sometimes is because it's challenging our belief of us being failures.
Yeah.
Like if we say sorry, then it's like, oh shit, so I am a failure. I failed at that.
I had to apologize. Yeah.
Then we have chapter 8, ask for more. And I like that she talks about in this one about her experience in therapy as a therapist.
Yes.
Take control.
Take control of therapeutic services, people. You know, we talk about therapy, right?
Yes.
And we talk about healing, and that's so big in our group.
Self-care.
Self-care. And, you know, she talks about how, yeah, I love having someone I can pay that I could just dump all my shit on. And I tell clients all the time, I'm like, you know, I just had a client the other day and she's like, I'm like, I know it's awkward to speak to a stranger about all your life. I'm like, but the good thing is I'm a stranger. So you could just dump everything here and then you leave.
Yeah.
You never have to worry about it.
Nobody will know because I don't know anybody that you know.
Exactly.
And she talks about the alchemist, guys. We have to read that book.
Yes, it's on my bookshelf. I have it there. So hopefully, I mean, I think we had it as one of our recommendations, right? We
Yeah,
was almost
we've
going to
had
get picked, and it
Yeah.
didn't.
One thing that she talks about that I wanted to just bring up quickly, because this is actually something that the three of us always struggle with. On page 125, she says she's talking to her therapist and she's kind of venting. And finally she says, have you asked your partner for help? So she says how what she realized in therapy was that although she is very bold, she is actually afraid to ask for what she really needs.
Yeah.
So
Which
that's
is true.
That's something that we've all worked on, right? Yeah, and
Very
continue to
And
work on.
yeah, I was gonna say it's continuing, like it's constantly.
Not only that, she also talks about like gifts, receiving gifts, and people being kind to you, helping you, and that's part of it. Where like
Being okay
we
to
want to do it
receive.
all. Yeah, we want to do it all. Don't want to ask for help, and we're used to being the ones to give. We're used to being the ones doing those kind gestures. So when people do it for us, como que we're like,
Yeah.
I can't accept it.
yeah,
It's not okay that I receive
Yeah.
it.
right. So it's like we question.
And so I
it.
think, going back to Read Amigas, like the three of us, we've been through some shit.
We have.
Trying to depend on each other, trying to like spread the work instead of like, I can do
Everybody
everything.
takes it on.
So, this has been an amazing book. Thank you everyone who's reading. We are loving Luvvie, and can't wait for the final ending and our second podcast.
Yes. Follow, subscribe, share, DM us,
Comment us.
everything.
Everything.
All right, guys. We'll
Right.
see you on the next
Bye,
one.
amigas.
Bye.